We shall now go on to a last but a very dynamic surgeon and speaker, Dr. Susan Jacob, who's the director of Dr. Agarwal's Refractive and Cornea Foundation since 21 years, specialized in refractive surgery and also cosmetic oculoplasty, and is one of the top 100 women ophthalmologists to be reckoned world over. A genius with her innovations, par excellence, and has contributed to major textbooks in ophthalmology, a huge trail of publications and awards to her attribute. So she is going to be talking to us on a favorite topic, PDEC, the learning curve. On to you, Dr. Susan.
Thank you so much, Chitra ma'am, and especially for inviting me here and for giving me that lovely introduction. I always love it because your sessions are always so dynamic and so full of, knowledge, and the way you bring out the questions from different people is amazing. So thanks for having me here. I'm going to just share my screen now, and just please let me know if you can see it.
Yeah, we can.
Thank you. So my talk is on PDEC, and I'm just going to go through some very basics. I think this almost all of us know that PDEC basically is also includes the predesmus layer or the Duas layer, which gives it the ability to, which gives us the ability rather to create these grafts from very, very young donor tissues. So you can get extremely young donor tissues, and therefore you can get a much larger endothelial cell reserve to start off with. And also the very classical difference that can be seen between the PDEC and the DMEC bubble. Dr. Fogla showed these beautiful DMEC grafts being prepared and how to do these. And as he said, you can also do it with the bubble or the saline, the fluid injection. And how we prepare the PDEC graft is just basically by either air injection or maybe with the storage medium or just with some BSS. And you can see here, this is the classic PDEC graft and this is a classic DMEC graft. And you can see the DMEC graft looks much more flimsy, but it is larger and it's got these sloping edges. Whereas the PDEC graft starts out from the center, expands to the periphery. It's very much like a Dalk bubble seen on the reverse, and that's exactly what it is. And you can see that it's smaller in size, but this is basically midway, and you can generally get larger PDEC grafts, as I'll show you later in the video. And these basically are tougher, stronger grafts. And that's one of the big advantages. So if you look at the PDEC grafts, what are the advantages? One is you get a larger quantum of cell transfer. You get lesser effect of surgical loss because the surgery really becomes easier, and I'll show you that later. You get good corneal clarity because you're using such young donor tissues, decreased chance of primary graft failure, and longer graft survival. So that was a 1-year-old graft. And the other big advantage is that of resilience, which is that it's a very tough, robust graft and does not tear. And so there's a lot of ease in tissue handling. And so that is a PDEC layer. Basically, you can see that it doesn't tear at all. And you would never be able to do with that with the DMEC graft. And that's something that's very flimsy. And any small tear or rip in the periphery can just extend along a DMEC graft. Now, this is basically my philosophy for doing the PDEC surgery. Keep it simple and sweet. So what are the basic steps that I use to overcome problems? And that gives me the ability to basically combine advantages of both DZEC and DMEC, that is easy graft handleability as well as wonderful results. E-PDEC, air pump assisted PDEC, host decimatic scaffolding. These are some of the techniques that I've described, and also the importance of an iris IOL diaphragm. So let's look at the E-PDEC or the E-DMEC technique, which we had published in the Journal of Cataract and Refractive Surgery. It's very, very simple. Basically, it makes all the difference because you know that when you're looking through the microscope light, your view is not good because you're looking at it perpendicular and straight down. And the minute you go on to oblique light, which is shown from the periphery, you can see all those folds and all those reflections that come off the graft, and this can of course be used for DMEC as well. And so you don't really need to use any other devices. You don't have to use expensive OCT devices, which of course most people would not have. You don't have to use the S stamp or the L stamp. I've never used it, in fact. All I do is the E-PDEC technique, and that gives me this beautiful visibility just because you're seeing it with oblique light. And as Shreyas also showed, you can also use an endo illuminator, which is fixed like a chandelier illumination. And that's another way of doing using an endo illuminator. So here's again just another graph that's seen with the endo illuminator, and you can see the difference, the stark difference that just the use of an endo illuminator makes to your surgery. The other technique is the air pump assisted technique, and that's also something that we published both in cornea and clinical ophthalmology. And here is what we do. This is a failed graft, as you can see. And what I've done is I've injected the graft in, and you can see that I'm really unlike DMEC, I'm not really so much bothered about how well centered it is, whether I've got these edge folds, these don't matter to me. And therefore my surgery is really fast. It goes really fast because I just go ahead and inject it in, and I can just draw it into place. And that's the beauty of the Pedic graft, because it gives you the ability to do this. A DMEC wouldn't allow you to do this. And and the air pump is continuously infusing air, acting as a third hand, and that helps me hold this graft in place and bring it into position nicely, open up those edge folds, and then close it with air. And that's the 1 month postoperative appearance of the same patient. And you can see you get beautiful results with the air pump assisted Pedic. In fact, your rate of graft detachment goes down hugely because you've already got the graft attached even by the end of surgery. So our graft detachment rate is extremely low. It's almost close to 0%, I would say. I've probably done one rebubbling, but otherwise it's extremely low. And I really attribute it to this technique, the air pump assisted technique, as well as another technique, which I'll show you also, which I call as a host decimetic scaffolding. Here's another example of the air pump assisted technique. You can see that the air is going in, acting as a third hand, holding it in place, and you use this reverse Sinski, and you can easily open up those edge folds and take away all the DMEC dance. So the DMEC dance is also something that does cause endothelial loss because you're rubbing it over and over against the iris and all that. And here you can have this young tissue which just fold up more, but still you can get it to be largely unrolled and just take, except only those peripheral edge folds, and those you can easily unroll with just the air pump assisted technique. So here's some difficult cases which show you how you can do this technique even for difficult cases. The Pedic technique using these assisted techniques like the E-Pedic, the air pump assisted Pedic. You can see that's a valve, and I've put the graft in. I've opened up the graft. And so that was obviously a valve that was put in the anterior chamber, causing corneal decompensation, and I repositioned it into the posterior chamber. So that's the postoperative appearance of the patient. This is the host decimetic technique, the host decimetic scaffolding technique. And this technique actually is a beautiful technique because it allows the graft to be held up and prevents its detachment. You can see that the decimetorexis that I'm doing is actually a little smaller in size. And the reason is that once you put the graft in, that's again the E-Pedic technique, showing you the orientation of the graft with the scrolls facing upwards, which shows you beautifully that it's right. I've opened up the graft to whatever I feel is a good enough amount, and you can see there are those peripheral small edge folds on two ends. I'm not bothered about them. I get my air pump assisted Pedic in, and with the air infusion flowing, I reposition that graft, center it to whatever is appropriate. And now if you look at that technique, that's the host decimetic scaffolding, where I kind of tease out that host decimetes which was lying above the graft, and I bring it out now to lie below the graft. So what this host decimetes does is it holds the graft in position, acts as a scaffold, and prevents its detachment in the postoperative period. You don't necessarily need to do it all around. You could just do a little bit of host decimetic scaffolding on either side, and that will also work in the postoperative period to prevent detachments. And here's the postoperative appearance of the patient. Here's also another case using the same technique, just to show you that you don't have to do it all around, but you can also just do it in a few areas. And you can do this using these techniques. As I said, you can do all other kinds of complex cases as well. This is a glued IOL, and I'll rush through this because just for the sake of time, I've got the glued IOL in vitrectomized eye. So you can see the Pedic graft is in, and we unfold it, put in the air pump. The air pump assisted technique is going on. As you can see, the graft is put in and the graft is unrolled. And that's 1 week post-op with a 6/6 appearance. Here's Pedic with aniridia IOL. So this is again a situation where there's the large areas where the graft can potentially go down, sink into the vitreous. But again, this technique, and the ability of this graft to be managed easily within the anterior chamber gives me the confidence that I'll be able to do this without any problems. And what I do here is I just center the aniridia IOL a bit because it was seeming to be a bit decentered. Once I've done that, the rest of the technique is the same. I've got the graft in, the air pump prevents it from dropping into the vitreous, and then we open it up and center it. And basically that's the end of the case. And that's a post-operative appearance. Again, retrocorneal membranes, you can see that's a retrocorneal membrane with the iris also stuck completely to the back of the cornea. As I went in with the air pump, it actually separates out. The decimetes just gets detached along with the iris which was stuck. And you'll see now the appearance. That's the entire retrocorneal membrane which has gone back, and it's also adherent to the iris. So what we do now is we go ahead and dissect it with scissors, strip it off the iris as well, get all those iris membranes off, and do a fourth row pupilloplasty, basically get the pupil into shape, put in the graft. And you can see this cornea doesn't really look great right at present. But once the PDEC is in, the graft is in, open it up, do your air pump assisted techniques, and you can see post-operatively you get really a beautiful, dramatically clear cornea. Here's another example, again with iris membranes, and this cornea, this is a failed graft, as you can see. So this is a very complex case, a failed graft with a very bad looking appearance of the cornea, and you probably prefer to do a repeat penetrating keratoplasty in this. But you go ahead, and what I'm doing here is a needle dissection of that fibrous membrane which is over the iris. So you gently separate it using a needle, and you can dissect it completely off the iris in that way. Take out the membrane. So now you've got a much clearer view. And then you go ahead and fix the rest of the anterior chamber, do a glued intraocular lens. So this you can see is multiple things: vitrectomized eye, failed graft, glued intraocular lens, pupilloplasty, and all those things. And finally, we get the PDEC graft in there. You can see it's stained with trypan blue. Use the air pump assisted technique, open up that last fold, and that's the first day appearance of the patient. And you can see really a much better appearance than what we started out with, which was that. So I think there are lots of other cases that I can show you, but we'll wind up with that and just talk about just a few other advantages, which is that eye banks are also offering pre-prepared PDEC grafts now. So if you're worried that you won't get a PDEC graft, then that's a possibility. In fact, our eye bank would also be happy to send it to you if you want. The graft size is something that everyone asks me about. Do you get small grafts? No, I generally get 7.5 very easily. Mostly I get about 8.5, and that translates to a very good size for you. Proper bubble creation, there are lots of techniques that you can use to make sure that you get good grafts. Remember also that the size of the graft that you get also depends on the size of the donor, white to white. So that's one thing. And of course, the advantage of using younger corneas. Just to show you, sorry, the size of the graft that you can actually get. I'll skip all this part and just come to just the graft size here. So you can see, you can get extremely large and very good graft sizes, even with PDEC, which you wouldn't probably believe unless you actually see them. And you can see that's a really nice graft, which is extending almost, very well across the cornea. Standard 8.5 is very common for me to get. So that concept that the PDEC grafts are small is really a false concept, and you can get extremely good graft sizes. So these are some of the post-ops, and I also have this book, Mastering Endothelial Keratoplasty, if anyone would like to read it, which goes on about DSEC, DMEC, PDEC, and all the other techniques. With that, I'll come to the end of my talk. Thank you so much.
Amazing videos, Susan, just mind-boggling. Dr. Rajesh, can you take a question for her?
Well, these are definite advantages of PDEC. Even Professor Dua has been showing some of the videos, and how the presence of Dua's layer in this graft can help in the manipulation, and you can definitely look at using the pediatric tissues. I think Namrata also has some experience with the PDEC graft. Maybe she can give some points as to what their experience has been.
So we did start doing PDECs mainly for the reason because sometimes the donor corneas would come, which would be of a younger donor, and there would be patients waiting for endothelial graft, and because of the age, we could not use them for DMEC. So we did start it off. In the beginning, of course, I think there is a learning curve because there is a bubble burst. If you put too much of air, or size of the graft is something which you may not be able to manipulate always. Sometimes the bubble is small, sometimes it is large. Then again, there are times when the type 1 bubble or type 2 bubble, I mean, that is something on which you will need time to get control on, and then you have to convert a PDEC graft to a DMEC graft, which is a very tough thing to do. That is what I feel, especially when you are dealing with the younger donors, and it becomes then tougher even to put them inside because they are very tight scrolls. But the cases which do well in the sense that I also feel, and I could be wrong, Susan, that you are putting the graft with the help of a reverse Sinskey kind of an instrument, or by cannula, you are kind of opening that parachute and then putting it there. So the only thing is that you are touching the peripheral endothelial cells. Now, you can say that you're using larger grafts and it doesn't matter. But like we do DMEC, it's like a non-touch technique. We don't touch the graft at all, except for one place to just pull it up. So that way, I feel that these are the things, especially in the learning curve, especially when you are when you are beginning to do PDEC, these are the problems which could be there, and these should be addressed. Of course, in cases like it's a firmer graft, it's a more sturdier graft that way that, you know, it will not tear like you so beautifully showed, and it will not, it's not flimsy. It's got a splint attached to it. So the handling is much better because it doesn't, you know, flip. And once you put it in the correct direction, it will remain there for quite some time and will not flip again and again. So those kind of advantages are really there. And then younger donors, or you can say donors in pediatric age group, is again one of the advantages. But I think I'm sure Dr. Rajesh, you would have done DMEX even with younger.
I did use this technique, which again Frank Price and Massimo Busin had also described. They called it the hybrid DSEC, you know, or hybrid DMEC, where they had a small stromal rim and they prepared the tissue by pneumatic dissection. We did try it, but we were then inserting it into the eye pretty much like what we were using a DSEC graft. So we used to pull through these grafts into the eye, and patients did do well. The only problem that we faced was we started seeing a little bit of an interface haze in these cases, which could have been the retained viscoelastic, which is much, unlike a DSEC graft, which has more form and rigidity. Here, the tissue is so floppy that any viscoelastic that you put on the endothelium can get transferred to the stromal side as well. So that could have been the reason. The second thing is that sometimes you see folds in the graft because unlike DMEC graft, which can, once you put an air, it irons out all the folds. Here, you have to physically remove those folds, especially if you are using a reverse Sinskey to move the graft in one direction or the other against an air bubble. You will see those linear folds, which if you don't remove them, they tend to affect the visual acuity in the long run. And from Dua's paper, the ideal size of the bubble comes to about 8.5. And even if you try to punch it out, sometimes in the periphery, using a scissors, very difficult to achieve larger size graft. The ideal size is between 7.5 and 8 in my hands. And recently, there has been a description of a technique where the peripheral DM can be scraped before you inject the air. Thereby, you can avoid the formation of the type 2 bubble. So you will get only a type 1 bubble when you prepare the graft. The disadvantage is that if you have a pediatric donor tissue and you inject air and you fail to achieve a type 1 bubble, then you are in a dilemma as to what to do with that tissue, because now it's all with the stromal emphysema. Then you have to either put it back in the medium, wait for the emphysema to clear, and then use it later for a PKP if you have failed to achieve a big bubble. So there is a learning curve achieved to this technique, and I think you have to handle the tissue much more carefully because you are doing too many steps which involve the endothelium.
So I think I agree with that there is a learning curve. And definitely as for any endothelial keratoplasty, except I think DSEC, which has a very short learning curve, everything else does have a long learning curve. What we do, just a couple of points about, what was mentioned, the difficulty in assessing the size of the graft, and also in not knowing whether the graft would burst or not when you're injecting. What I do for preventing that and for getting a very controlled expansion of graft is that I inject air, and once the bubble has reached a small size, so I'm not doing a rapid injection, I'm doing a small, slow injection, superficial needle placement. Of course, needle need not be inserted all the way to the center. You can keep it at the periphery and you get a small central bubble. Once you do that, you advance the needle and you change over to trypan blue. If you don't want trypan blue, you can just change over to storage medium or BSS or whatever. And then you expand it. And then your expansion becomes much more slower and you can get a controlled graft size because you're no longer injecting air, which can rapidly expand. That's one thing. The second thing is about the handling. I think, since we started it, we've almost stopped DSEC completely, except when we had a trainee who came once and wanted to learn DSEC, and not done PDEC also for I personally have not done for the last, at least I think 3 years. So the advantage that PDEC gives me is I'm so comfortable now doing it that I don't mind doing this. I do it without a second thought in all complex cases also, including one-eyed patients. In fact, just before the surgery, I did a practicing doctor one-eyed patient with Fuchs. That was, of course, a simple case. But all complex cases also you can do. So that is, I think, an advantage which DMEC may not offer you every time, of the confidence that you are going to be able to do it perfectly without problems. The last point, I think, Rajesh, you mentioned something in the end. What was that about? You said something about
avoiding a type 2 bubble. You can do a peripheral scoring.
Right. That's the Soper's technique. That was what you said, the Mark Soper's technique, where you scoring around that thing. And I think that greatly helps. That does greatly help. Also, if you get emphysema and you're wondering, you've taken a small young eye and you get emphysema, and now you think, are you going to have to throw that bubble away? No, don't do that, because that's when you can go inject again with saline or BSS or storage. I generally just use the storage medium, or Tropando also. So storage is good because you go superficially and you inject. If you don't get it, you go a little more superficially. The edema will allow you to go superficially, because once you inject a bit, it becomes edematous. And so when you do that with the medium, you can always expand it. So you don't have to really discard the bubble. That's something. Very rarely I've got a type, of course, type 2 does happen. I'll not say that it doesn't happen. Type 3 happens once in a while. When you get a type 3, identify it immediately and rupture that type 2, which is forming in the periphery. The minute you rupture it, just give a small needle prick and just give a small tear in the end, then you can get the type 1 to preferentially expand. And once that happens, you can cut it either a little eccentric, or just use that part even as a flap. It doesn't matter if there's a small partial type 3 in the edge. If most of it is type 1, then you can have still gone ahead with it and completed the surgery.
So are we done? Any more questions to ask, or shall I give my concluding remarks?
Go ahead with your concluding remarks.
All of you all are tired, and you all should admire me for hearing so much of cornea amidst you all.
I have to thank Dr. J.S. Chittial sir for giving tissues for PDEC, because when we were doing this thesis, there was COVID in between and there were absolutely no tissues. And as soon as the COVID went off, it didn't go off, but there was, a lull period for 2-3 months. So he was kind enough to, allow us to do PDEC with all the tissues so that we could complete the thesis. Otherwise, it would have been a challenge to do it.
Congratulations. I think your papers just got published in JCRS with IOCT and PDEC, if I'm right.
Yeah.
So congratulations for that.
So I'm sure we have had a great learning today with the expert panel and an absolutely amazing set of speakers. And there has been so much of knowledge sharing moment today. My deep felt thanks to the great panel and speakers. My very special thanks to my co-moderator, Dr. Rajesh Fogla, without whom this webinar couldn't have been a success as it should have been. Thanks a lot. My thanks are due to all in my ARC panel. Thanks a lot to Mr. Kripal and his team. Special thanks to Mr. Sunil, our webinar admin, who could not contribute as much as he usually does. It's quite amazing. Our thanks to Sai and Manjula from Numerotech for their constant support. Our deep felt thanks to Entode for their constant support and encouragement and sponsoring all our webinars. And finally, thanks a lot, dear attendees, for being with us and helping us keep coming back to you with webinars on different themes. Our prayers that all of you stay very safe and remain absolutely careful. Thank you, one and all. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.